white matter of the cerebrum. Now we focus on to the internal capsule. Internal capsule is actually the name given to the all three projection fibers. The word internal, other is the capsule. Internal means these projection fibers of the cerebrum, they lie very deep inside the cerebrum. That's why it's called the internal, means deep inside. So in order to see these, we have to cut the cerebrum, sometimes the horizontal section, sometimes sagittal section, and sometimes the coronal section. Then we depict all these projections of the internal. The second word is the capsule. The capsule word we have taken that the large number of the axons of the projection fibers of the cerebrum, that is the corticospinal, corticonuclear, and corticopontine. So these three types of the fibers, they are very enormous. They are very large in number. But as these projection fibers, they are marching towards their destination, they become very, very close and compact. And because of the closeness and the compactness, we use the word the capsule. So they are in the form of the capsule. As you know, whenever we are in, we take the tablet or the capsule. Which is easy to go inside, tablet or capsule? Capsule. Because capsule is a small size, having the same salt, the surface area of the tablet is more. Same word we are using the capsule. That large number of fibers, they are occupying very small or minimized space in the cerebrum. In other example, the astronauts who goes into the space, how many astronauts go at a time? Sometimes 5 or 6 or 7. And what is the vessel where they go? What is the name? That is called capsule. So the meaning is the same. The 7 astronauts, they are present in and they are going into a very small space or vessel, that is called the capsule. So that is the word. What is the internal and what is the capsule? Now the parts of the internal capsule. It has got the anterior limb, the genome, the band, posterior limb, sublentiform part, and retrolentiform part. Sublentiform part is also called auditory radiation. Auditory radiations. And retrolentiform part is called optic radiations. Optic radiations. So that is the meaning of the. So we describe the internal capsule under 5. Now, extent. When we trace these compact bundle of fibers upward, they are coming from corona radiata. And if we trace them where they are going downward, then below they are continuous with the crus cerebri of midbrain. Crus cerebri of midbrain. So that is the upper and the lower continuation or the extension of the internal capsule. Or in other words, internal capsule is the continuation of the coronary data, and internal capsule, they are continued further downward to the other parts of the CNS in the form of the crus cerebri. So that is the meaning. Now in order to see this, internal capsule, which is sandwiched between the thalamus medially and the lentiform nucleus laterally. So thalamus and the caudate nucleus, they are lying medially, and the lentiform nucleus lies laterally. So it is sandwiched in such a way that it forms a V-shaped geometry. So it is sandwiched. And in order to see the internal capsule, we have got a special horizontal or transverse section of the cerebrum. If we see the cerebrum, if we want to see the internal capsule, because it lies deep inside the cerebrum in a very small space, so we have to cut horizontally the cerebrum like this at the level of number 1, lateral sulcus, or at the level of intervertebral foramen of Monro, or at the level of the insula. All these levels, they are the same. So when we cut the horizontal section of the cerebrum like this, at the level of lateral sulcus or insula, or at the level of the interventricular foramen of Monro, what picture we got after this is this picture. So this is the cut section of the horizontal section of the cerebrum at the level of the insula or lateral sulcus, or at the level of the interventricular foramen of the Monro. This is called the frontal pole. This is the occipital pole. So this is the posterior side, and at the periphery there is the cerebral cortex. In the horizontal section, the thickness of the cerebral cortex decreases with the advancing age. After the age of 60 years, this thickness further decreases, and that is called the diffuse cerebral atrophy. Diffuse cerebral atrophy. These are the sulci which divide the cortex into the various small and large gyri. So this is the outer or the superficial surface of the cerebral cortex is visible right. This is the lateral ventricle, anterior horn of the lateral ventricle. So in this section, here lies the head of the caudate nucleus, and this is the thalamus. This is the interthalamic adhesion. Egg-like structure, corner from all the sides, and as we know, laterally there lies the lentiform nucleus. In the lateral part is the putamen. This diagram we have also mentioned in the basal ganglia as well. And the medial part, the globus pallidus. So this is the head of the caudate nucleus, and here below laterally lies the tail of the caudate nucleus in the front side. So this V-shaped gap between caudate nucleus, lentiform nucleus, and medially thalamus. So this V-shaped gap is the space for the internal capsule. Here the ascending and descending fibers of the cerebrum, they have to pass. This is the reason when we have done the basal ganglia, we have seen that basal ganglia, they are adjusted in such a way that they are not touching the thalamus. And caudate nucleus and lentiform nucleus, there is a gap. So this is the gap is there. So ultimately, the ascending and descending projection fibers of the cerebrum, they occupy this space. And I am showing the dots means ascending and descending fibers of the cerebrum, projection fibers. Sensory are coming and motor they are going down. So this V-shaped geometry is so formed in the frontal lobe and behind in the parietal lobe. This is called the internal capsule. So see, this is a capsule. This is a small, this is a large capsule. The posterior limb is a large capsule. Anterior limb is a small capsule. And the posterior part of the thalamus having the two button-like structures. They are called medial and lateral geniculate bodies. They are metathalamus. This is the medial geniculate body. This is the lateral geniculate body. So the medial geniculate body and lateral geniculate body. So medial geniculate body is related to the hearing. Now this is the insula and the temporal lobe. So fibers from the medial geniculate body, they go below the lentiform nucleus and they end into the temporal lobe, area 42 and 43. Hearing area of the superior temporal gyrus. All these fibers from the medial geniculate body, they march towards the temporal lobe from their hair. So this is the hearing area in the temporal lobe. Similarly, from the lateral geniculate body, the axon of the fibers, they go to the area 17, 18 and 19 of the occipital lobe. And these constitute the optic radiations. So this is the complete diagram of the internal capsule. That how it looks with all structures, medial geniculate body and lateral geniculate body. And this is the anterior limb with the genome, with the posterior limb of the internal capsule. And these dotted fibers, they are the auditory radiations or sublentiform part of the internal capsule. These are the optic radiations that constitute the retrolentiform part of the internal capsule. So this is the head of the caudate nucleus. This is the tail of the caudate nucleus. So what you will see, what is the anterior limb, how you define and describe it. So anterior limb is the part of the internal capsule which is sandwiched between the head of the caudate nucleus medially and the lentiform nucleus laterally. The genu is the part of, genu is called the bend, where the anterior limb bend to the posterior limb. So this bend is called the genu. So genu is forming the bend. It lies between the three: thalamus, lentiform nucleus and the head of the caudate nucleus. The posterior limb is the longest and it lies laterally between the laterally lentiform nucleus and medially the thalamus, the lateral surface of the thalamus. And it is longer, posterior limb is longer because it contains more ascending and descending fibers than this. So this is how we describe the anterior limb, genu and posterior limb. Now question arises, which type of the projection fibers are present in these? If we consider the anterior limb, in the anterior limb, the fibers which are present, the projection fibers, They are number one, frontopontine. Frontopontine fibers. Then anterior thalamic radiations. Anterior thalamic radiations, they are present in the anterior part. So these are the fibers. They are present over them. Now comes the genome. Which type of fibers are present in the genome? The fibers of the genome, they are the corticonuclear. Corticonuclear fibers for head and neck. Number two, it also contains frontopontine plus paritopontine fibers. That is the genome. Then comes the posterior limb. The posterior limb contains largest number of fibers. And these fibers, they are corticospinal fibers. From head to toe, the corticospinal fibers for the head, they are present anteriorly. There is a definite sequence of the fibers. Head fibers, then neck, then upper limb, then thorax, then abdomen, and then lower limb. So here the body is represented straight. There the head lies anteriorly and the foot or the lower limb lies posteriorly. While in the corona radiata, it was homunculus in the precentral gyrus. But as these fibers, they descend downward, they becomes compact and they twist at 90-degree angle. Because of their twisting at the 90-degree angle, now the fibers, they become straight in the internal capsule, because capsule is a sandwiched part, a very narrow part. So whole of the motor fibers of whole of the body from head to toe or muscles, they are represented in a very small space. If you measure this posterior limb in the CT scan, it only measures 3 centimeters. 3 centimeters means whole of the muscles from the head to toe of the opposite side, they are occupied in only 3 centimeter area. And that is the clinical importance. If this 3 centimeter area is damaged, then it is equivalent to the damage to the whole of the precentral gyrus, which is about 6 inches long. If you measure the precentral gyrus, in the frontal lobe of the motor area is 6 inches, from where the corona radiata fibers or the corticospinal fibers, they are arising. The 6 inches fibers, they are now occupied only in the 3 centimeter area, as these fibers, they descend from the precentral gyrus. As you know, this is the precentral gyrus. And the fibers from the head, neck, upper limb, thorax, abdomen, lower limb, all fibers, as they are corona radiata, like the rays of the sun. But as they are descending downward, they are becoming closer. And they have to, because they are projection fibers, they have to leave the cerebrum. This is the limit of the cerebrum. They have to come out. Already there is a gap is present between the lentiform nucleus and thalamus and caudate nucleus. This gap is already there. V-shaped gap is already, we have left it. Why we have left it during the basal ganglia description? Because we know that projection fibers, they have to go out of the cerebrum through this gap. They won't pierce the thalamus. Descending fibers, they won't pierce the lentiform nucleus. They don't pierce the caudate nucleus. Because already we are not touching these structures. Already gap is, we have left. This gap is the cerebrum. And now they become again compact. And what they form? The crus cerebri of the middle. So this is the projection. Then what else they contain? So posterior they also contains rubro, cortico-rubral fibers. They also contain posterior thalamic radiations. So these are the fibers, they are present. Other than this corticospinal fibers, they contains corticoruberal fibers to the red nucleus of the midbrain. They also contain posterior thalamic radiations. The posterior limb is clinically important because it is bigger inside. Then the auditory radiations are the radiations. They are also called the sublentiform part because they start from the medial geniculate body, and the axons from here they go below the lentiform nucleus and then reach the temporal lobe. As they pass below the lentiform nucleus, they are labeled as the sublentiform part of the internal. Sub means below. And from the lateral geniculate body, the axons they march towards the occipital lobe. As they go posteriorly, they form a radiation which is called the optic radiations. As they lie behind the lentiform nucleus, they are called the retrolentiform part of the internal capsule. So internal capsule is nothing but these are the projection fibers and bundles of the fibers. So this is how we have to describe the projection fibers. Now last comes the blood supply. Now blood supply of the internal capsule is very important because small damage to the internal capsule lead to the vast signs and symptoms to the patient. As we know, blood vessels, they are from the circle of Willis. As we know, the internal carotid artery, it comes like in the lateral circle, and from here a branch goes to supply the posterior limb. First, this artery supplies the lentiform nucleus, then it supplies the posterior limb of the internal capsule. Is the branch of the middle cerebral artery, which lies in the lateral circle. Now, this branch is called the lenticulostride branch. This branch is called the lenticulostride branch. Why it is called lenticular? Because it's formed first, it supplies the lentiform nucleus which is present laterally. As the artery is coming from lateral to medial side, so mostly it supplies the lentiform nucleus or the striate cortex. Then its terminal branches, they supply the posterior limb of the internal capsule which contains corticospinal of the head and neck, from head to toe. So it is a very important artery, and it is the end artery because here it ends. And whenever this artery is involved frequently in the high blood pressure patients. So the high blood pressure patient, what happens, this artery undergo burst, and that is called the rupture of the artery, which lead to the what is called the brain hemorrhage. Brain hemorrhage is because of this artery. They are also called the Charcot's artery. It's called the Charcot's artery. The Charcot's artery is very much involved, or the middle cerebral artery, supply posterior. The anterior cerebral artery is also supplied. And the anterior cerebral artery also supplies the anterior limb. So this is a reticulocyte branch. Charcot artery is the end artery, and because of the end artery, under high blood pressure, it bursts, and it leads to the bleeding. In the CT scan, we see a whole of the posterior limb is immersed or embedded or submerged in the blood clot. So bleeding is there. Blood is all the descending fibers. They are all surrounded by the blood. That is called the brain hemorrhage, or what is called the brain stroke. And this hematoma or blood will block the conduction of the nerve fibers. As no conduction will go beyond this, and that lead to the contralateral paralysis of the muscle from the head to toe. Plus, because of the involvement of the sensory fiber, that is posterior thalamic radiations, there is a sensory loss of the skin also. The general sensory loss is also there. And because of the corticoruberal fibers that are also involved, the tone of the muscle, they are also involved. The muscles become flaccid also. So this is the upper motor neuron type of the lesion is there. Because of the rubrospinal, there is a spastic paraplegia. Spastic hemiplegia is there. So this explains if you know what type of the fibers are present in the posterior limb. So it is the end artery and has got no collaterals, and it always normally also remains under high pressure. That is the called the Charcot's artery. So this bleeding around the descending fibers will block the conduction, and this lead to the paralysis of the opposite half of the body. With the passage of the time, this clot shrinks, and there may be recovery of the hemiplegia. Maybe there patient is taking physiotherapy, exercises of the muscles, and tone is maintained, and circulation of blood is maintained. Then he or she may improve also, depending upon how much area is involved and whether the blood pressure or hypertension is controlled in that patient or not. If the genu is involved, usually genu is supplied by the artery of the Hubner, which is a recurrent branch of the anterior middle cerebral artery. So when the genu is involved, patient comes with the paralysis of the muscles of the head and neck. Muscles of the tongue, they are also involved. There is a Bell's paralysis will be there. So all the head and neck motor functions will be deranged because it contains corticonuclear fibers. So TT and H, the tumor, the trauma, the hemorrhage, and the thrombus. So these are the four main lesions of the brain. T for trauma, that is the head injury involving any part of the internal capsule. Second T for the tumor, a space occupying lesion may be developed anywhere in the brain and it may press the posterior limb or genu or the anterior limb. Or a T for thrombus, the block in the arterial supply of the middle cerebral or anterior cerebral or internal carotid artery may block the blood supply of the any part of this internal capsule. The patient comes with concerned associated sign and symptom. If there is a TT and H, hemorrhage, high blood pressure, if it occurs in this area, then optic radiation will be blocked, and patient comes with the homonymous hemianopia, loss of vision of the one eye. If the retrolentiform part, if this is having the TT and H, patient comes with the hearing loss of the one ear. So depending upon which area or which fibers of the internal capsule involved, patient present with the different modalities of the signs and symptoms. For that you have to know that which part of the internal capsule contains which type of the fibers and what are their functions. So that's all about the internal capsule.